Hello and welcome to the Midweek Reboot. My name's Mayan, and I'm really glad that you made it to this live. Drop your name in. Please tell me if you can hear me. Let me know who's on this live. It's really good to have you on board. And happy 1st of July. So we literally half the way through this year. Can you believe? And today we're tackling an interesting subject. Welcome, Yesh. Lovely to have you on board. Thanks for confirming you can hear me. Appreciate it. Tonight is the first of the second half of the year. And instead of asking whether you achieved enough in the first half of the year, which is the question that most people tend to ask, we're going to now switch that around. We're going to ask, what is enough? Instead of asking, have we achieved enough? Let's talk about what is enough. I want to ask us the harder questions, but as we go through this, I want you to reflect. Welcome, Kalisha. Welcome, Viloshni. Lovely to have you at this live. So, we're going to deep dive into what enough is and reflect as we go through this live because we're always chasing. Think about the last big thing you achieved. Most probably, it's the promotion you got, a deliverable that you achieved, the target that you had or your company had, and you achieved that, the qualification that you've been working so hard on. Tell me really, how long did that satisfaction last you? And before we even celebrate that win, we're already looking at what's our next thing to do. We don't sit in that win that we have. We're always striving for more. I'm not saying that wanting more is wrong, but what is enough? Because when you start pushing enough to that extent, it can also lead to burnout. So we hit the thing that we wanted and it's arrived, but then we move that finish line, and that finish line always gets moved. So enough is not really enough. And before you know it, you're burnt out, you're tired, you're exhausted. There's chronic fatigue that you experience. That's because we haven't defined what that finish line is. And here's what I've seen over the close to 30 years that I've been in corporate, that people keep pushing. And a lot of the times it's self imposed because we want bigger things, we want better things. And then pushing too hard all the time, non-stop, and working too hard. Now that brings about burnout. It's about chasing that finish line, and that finish line keeps moving. And really, we can't arrive at a finish line that keeps moving. You just keep running and going through the process, and you hit burnout. It's no surprise. My question to you is, think of the last thing you achieved that you were sure would feel like enough. How long did that feeling actually last before you were chasing the next thing? You can drop it into the chats. Personally, I find that once I've achieved something, I don't sit in celebrating that win. I'm always thinking about the next thing. If I've completed a video or a live, it's not celebrated. It's about, okay, let me think about the next video I need to do. Let me think about the next live. Kelisha says, I think it lasted a few days and then I was on to the next thing. Absolutely. Yesh concurs. Not long at all, maybe a day or so. And that's what we find. Yesh and Kelisha hit the nail on the head. That's what we find in corporates. That's what we find in life, that people don't sit in the celebration of the win. They want to move to the next thing. So, what is enough for you? Here's the thing, nobody is born believing they are not enough as they are. That gets taught. So, perhaps in school, you were you got a certain grade but you had to push to get a better grade. Maybe it was learned from home as well. Good marks were expected, not celebrated. It's an expectation you get an A, but how often was that really celebrated? And then at work, we learn these habits as well, where your worth is your output. I think I mentioned it in one of the videos. You're as good as your last project. And if your project was bad, then that also taints your worth. If you're So you're always chasing to ensure that you deliver a good project. And the moment you deliver, the clock resets. And what's the next target? What's the next deliverable? What's next on the plate? And that's what we find with most of us in corporate life, in life itself. And now this is becoming even worse with AI, because that's accelerating all of it. There's more output that's expected. You need to do things faster. And people expect this from you. Now, with AI, that more is relentless, because that's you've got all these aids at your disposal. So it's about how do you use it. So enough is not enough. We do not sit in our win. And for a lot of us, when we achieve, we earn the right to feel okay about ourselves, which means we never stop. We want that same feeling. And the moment we stop achieving, that old feeling of not being enough comes straight back at us. So we always feel we have to deliver, we have to be on top of our game. Question to you is, where do you think your more came from? Was it home? Was it work? Was it somewhere else? When did you first learn that you weren't quite enough? Is that something you told yourself because of what you picked up from home, what you picked up from work? And I think in most cases as well, as Yesh says, it's a combination of all of those things, because there's certain at home, that's where you have to chase the grades as you're going through school. Then when you come to the workplace, you have to chase those targets, you have to compete with others, you want that promotion. And if you, from a financial perspective, you have a house, you want a bigger house. You have a car, you want a bigger car. You have no name brands as you were growing up, now you want branded clothing. So enough is never enough. We're always trying for more. And here's the thing, there's a reason the satisfaction never lasts. And it's not a personal failing. We adapt. Whatever we achieve becomes the new normal very quickly. The new salary becomes just your salary. That you're excited that you've got an increase, but already your lifestyle and your expenses matches increases and matches that new salary. So the new salary becomes just a salary. The promotion just becomes a job. First, you're happy about the promotion, the new title, the opportunities it's given you. And then it just becomes a job because you've gotten used to it. And the things that you dream about, it just becomes the things that you now take for granted. So over time, with time, the new becomes the old or the usual. So we need to hit we need to identify what enough is for us. Otherwise, we sit in this loop. That treadmill keeps running because we haven't defined what enough is. And as I was preparing for this live, I thought let's draw on people that we might know, popular people. So there's two, and on different ends of the spectrum. There's Will Smith, and this is what he said in his book. And he's one of the most successful people and entertainers around. He wrote this in his book. He said he kept believing that if he was more successful, he would be happier and more loved. That he was trying to fill an emotional hole with external achievement. So that was his driving force, that if he was more successful, that would help him to be happier. But underneath it, the root of it is that he was there was an emotional scar that he was trying to plug. And then he said something that was very interesting. He said that chasing more is like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. You build a tolerance over time, and the more you have it, the more do you need it to get that same high. And the more you get of it, the more you want. And that never really satisfies, or um, it never scratches the itch that you have, because there's always the striving for more. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't be ambitious, but it's about identifying what is enough. So then we don't need to be on this treadmill all the time. And I think that what Will Smith said, it helps us understand what this treadmill is. It's never ending if you don't control it. And when we look at Will Smith, he's successful from the outside, but he has a measure of winning and he feels completely empty inside. And therefore, that drives him to achieve, because he's running a race without a finish line. And over time, that gets exhausting. So be honest with me and drop it into the chat. Have you ever hit something you worked hard for and felt strangely empty instead of satisfied? What was it? And if you don't want to share it, you can say either yes or no. Have you hit something that you worked really hard for, and instead of being satisfied, you felt strangely empty? When I did my master's degree, I spent 2.5 years completing my master's degree. And it was push, push, push. Whilst I was working full time, I was still striving to complete my master's degree. And I completed my thesis the at the end of my masters, and I it was a cum laude, and I received an A for it. But strangely enough, I did not celebrate it. It was one of those things. But to have completed my masters with an A was quite an accomplishment. But we take these things for granted. 2.5 years of sacrificing, of working full time, and waking up at 2 a.m. to the morning 5 a.m., 6 a.m., then getting ready, and between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., I would study, and then I will get ready and go to work. Over 2.5 years, I did this, but I did not celebrate the win of actually receiving the master's with a distinction. And that, I use that example to showcase how us humans, we tend to brush off the wins that we have in our lives. Yesh says, yes, various goals over time in different aspects of my life. Satisfaction was short lived. So, Yesh, my question to you and to the others, how can we flip this around? How can we stay in that win a little longer? Appreciate the effort that you put into it. And as much as you're not appreciating it, my question on the reverse side is, when somebody that reports into you sends you a good piece of work, how are we recognizing them in that moment as well as in team meetings? Do we actually celebrate our wins? And this also makes me mindful. When we enter into meetings, we are so focused on what we want to get done. We want to drive through that agenda and look at the present and forward looking, but we don't look at what we accomplished. We don't recognize the people who actually put in that hard work. So, yes, satisfaction is short lived, and we don't make the time to actually celebrate the people who have who have won, who have actually achieved. Yesh says, good point. Wins should be celebrated. So, what chasing enough is costing us? Because there's always a bill that comes due to chasing. It's never free. It might come at the expense of your health. It might come at the expense of not spending enough time with your family. It might come at being at the dinner table, but not actually being present. And before you know it, your kids have grown up. You've lost that quality time with them. So, whilst you are chasing, because there's never a finish line, life is also happening. And it brings me back to 2009, when I really worked so hard at this project day and night for 9 months. And at the end of it, it caused me to have hypothyroidism, which is a low functioning thyroid. And that impacted my health further because I was pushing. It's one deliverable after the other. And at that point in time, I was wanting to show my worth through delivery. And I never took downtime. My sleep was impacted, my eating was impacted. And I never stopped to ask the question, what is enough? So if there's anything that I'd like you to remember from this live, is Firstly, identify what is enough, and if you are still chasing, at what cost is it coming at? Because if it's coming at the cost of your health, then is enough, and then is it fine to say that you have not defined your enough? Probably it might mean that you need to stop and take stock of what is enough for you. My question to you is, what has the chase for more quietly costed you? Something that never showed up in any performance review or scorecard, but you know you paid it. What has that in chasing for more quietly costed you? You can put it down in the chats. And if you have any questions, please also put it into the chat. Yesh says the opposite, feeling dissatisfied, unhappy, frustrated. So that's the chase for more. You feeling dissatisfied, unhappy, frustrated. So my question would be to you, Yesh, is what you were chasing. Were you chasing the right thing? And it's something that you might want to sit with. If you felt dissatisfied, unhappy, and frustrated, the question would be, why did you feel those feelings? And Kelisha concurs with Yesh and says she agrees with Yesh on this one. So you're chasing for more, but it does cost you. And if you're saying you're feeling dissatisfied, unhappy, and frustrated, then you need to ask yourself, is that the way you should be living if you're chasing for more? We need to define what enough is for ourselves, not your colleague, not your senior, but for yourself in various aspects of your life. What is enough? And if you don't define it, the world will keep defining it for you. The organization, your seniors, they will define what is enough. And the world's answer is always more. It's never enough. You give your best at work, but they're wanting more. You reach a target, but they're wanting more. You provide a deliverable, but they're wanting more. Do you see the trend? The more that is required from you when you're on that treadmill. And the only way off that treadmill is if you decide on purpose what enough actually looks like for you. Not, and it doesn't need to be forever. It can be just for now, for this season. If you're going through something difficult, or if it's been a difficult year for you, what is enough? So Yesh says, still chasing it, hey? I have an end picture in sight, but it's a big goal, so I get frustrated a lot. So if you get frustrated that you're not achieving that big goal, how about breaking down that goal, making it more achievable? And when so you have that big goal, and then you have milestones to achieve that big goal. And put in a lot of the times we have these big goals, but we don't have the milestones of how we're going to get there, but also our actions that we need to take to get us to those milestones and then get us to that goal. So you need to work it backwards. What are those milestones? What are the mini actions you need to take? And then hopefully that will help you to be less frustrated and achieve a little more. And for that period, that is enough. These actions are enough because I have a bigger plan in place. I hope that helps, Yesh. And as I mentioned, you need to identify what enough is and identify where you are in your life and determine your enough. It might not be forever. And as I said upfront, it's not about being less ambitious, it's about pacing yourself. Yesh says, thanks. That really helps and puts things in perspective. You're most welcome. And in defining enough, as I research this topic, I want to, I use the example of Will Smith on one spectrum, always striving for more because he believed that success will plug that emotional gap that he felt and it would build up his worth. Then on the other end of the spectrum, there's Cameron Diaz, also an actress. And what she did was quite powerful. At the peak of her career, one of the biggest well known actresses, A list actresses from Hollywood, she simply stopped for a while. It might have been about a decade, 10 years, that she was not in movies and she moved out of Hollywood. And she said that was the best 10 years of her life because she called it for what it was. She had enough. And then she said, when she'll come back, she'll do her own thing. But she didn't regret having taken that time. So it was not a sacrifice for her. She deliberately, purposefully said, enough is enough. And yes, you might be saying, I still have to work. I still have to earn a living. Cameron Diaz could do it because she made her money through the movies that she acted in. But yes, we still have to work. But what is enough in a day? When can you call it a day? As opposed to working all day and through the night, you need to call it enough is enough. When you with your family, are you giving them quality time? And striving also, it makes me think about, and you hear this a lot, people say, I want to provide for my kids those things that I didn't have when I was growing up. Did the kids ask for it? Because as they grow up, it's not about the things that you bought them, but it's about the quality times that you spent with them. So you need to define what enough is for you. And remember what I said earlier, it always comes at a cost. If you're going to keep striving and wanting more, that bigger car, that bigger house, the branded um, clothing, then that will come at a cost. So you need to see what your trade offs are. Three questions to find your enough. Here it is. Enough of what? Name the specific thing you are endlessly chasing. Is it money? Is it recognition? Is it proof that you're worth something? Is it security? You cannot define enough until you know what you are measuring. Then, what would enough actually look like? Be specific. It needs to be concrete. What is enough? Not more. That's very generic. Put in a number, a feeling, a state you could actually point to and say, there, that is the line. So, whatever you're striving towards, define enough for yourself, be it at work, at home, be it with your finances, with your job, with your relationships. And then the next one is, how would you know you have reached it? And what would you do differently the day after you did reach it? So, those are the three questions to find your enough. Be specific on what is enough. What second thing is be concrete on what enough actually looks like, feels like. And three, how would you know you reached it? So here's one practice for this week. Pick one area, just one area, where you will name your enough. Write it down. Enough for me in this area for this season looks like this. And that's a prompt for you to think through what your enough is. And then notice how it feels to have a finish line you actually drew yourself, that you actually planned out. Would that be something that you're willing to do? Pick one area of your life and work through it to determine what enough is, be it work, be it money, be it achievement, anything. Finish the sentence for yourself. Enough for me in this area would look like. And I'm not going to ask you to put it into the chat, but I'm going to prompt you to do that for yourself. Otherwise, we're chasing and chasing, and at the end, and knowing where we are. This is 1st of July. We're in the second half of the year. If we keep chasing the way we are, where will we be in November and December? And that's the reason I also decided on doing this topic, so that we can change things now for later. Yesh says she's definitely going to do this. Perfect. Personally, I'm still in the state of finding what my enough is. As much as I'm asking you to do it, it's about me also doing it as well, because we're always driving and striving, and there's various aspects of one's life. So it's also an exercise that I'm going to do as well. And also, chasing becomes a habit. We become so used to it. Remember what I said? We get conditioned from work, from home, and then we're always striving. Let's try to just pause, take stock of what we've achieved. Even as I'm thinking about it as well, when you, at the end of the day, take stock of your day, as opposed to looking at just the bad things that happened. And that's how our mind works. Let's look at things that didn't work. Look at the things that actually worked. the things that you actually got done, the good things that happened in your day, and perhaps also give gratitude for that. And that's part of celebrating our wins. And that brings us to the end of the live. And I'd like you to remember you are not behind, you are not falling short, and you don't need to keep chasing. And know that if there's no finish line, then you're always driving. You are enough. And remember that always, that it reminds me actually of something that I wrote back when I was quite young. And it used to be on my mirror, it used to be in my books as well. You are enough. Sometimes we are chasing because we feel within ourselves, like Will Smith, we're not enough. You are enough. Remember that. And I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me. I go live every Wednesdays. So subscribe and you'll get the reminder to join. I put out videos on a Monday and a Friday. Catch that. I'll see you next week, and always remember that you matter. Take care of yourself. Bye.